Test.
Welcome everyone to the Thursday, August 15th meeting of the Clear Lake City Council. Thank you for joining us today. We'll start off with the roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Kramer,
Here.
Councilmember Purdock,
Here.
Councilmember Slotin,
Here.
Mayor Claffey,
Here.
and Vice Mayor Overton is absent.
Councilmember Purdock, will you lead us in the pledge?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you please remain standing, just a moment for those in your life who may be ailing or are sick right now. Let's have a moment of silence for our community. Thank you. Mr. Fleur, any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, like to pull item number 12, and reschedule for a future meeting.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept the agenda with the removal of item 12. Second that.
A motion from Councilmember Purdock, a second from Councilmember Kramer. Please vote in your portal.
Aye.
Motion passes with unanimous vote of the council.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. On to item number 1, presentation of August's adoptable dogs.
Okay, so our cat here, her name is Gloria. She's approximately 1 year old. Gloria is very sweet and loving. She loves playing with toys and getting lots of stuff. Gloria is spayed, vaccinated, and microchipped and ready to meet her new family. This is Hulk. He is one of the sweetest boys you'll ever meet. Hulk enjoys toys, playing with other dogs, and lots of love and attention. He may only have 3 legs, but that does not slow him down one bit. Hulk came into the shelter injured, and the vet unfortunately had to amputate his leg, but he does not mind at all. The day after surgery, Hulk acted as if he has only had 3 legs his whole life. He looks at the glass half full, not half empty. Hulk brings all of the people around him so much happiness. Come down to our shelter, meet this handsome guy, you will not regret it. He's neutered, vaccinated, microchipped, and ready for his forever home.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you very much. Time to go.
Lieutenant?
The name Lucky was taken already.
Hold on, he found some friends.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, intake so far in the shelter has been 293 dogs, 247 have left, 42 rescued, 187 returned to owner, 15 adopted, 2 euthanizations, and 1 died in shelter care. The live release rate at this time is 99.04%. Current shelter population is 59 dogs, which includes 53 adult dogs and 6 puppies. There's been 100 microchips, 97 free vaccination clinics. And part of it, the cat is North Bay Animal Services has began a new partnership with the SPCA. And when they have openings from cancellations during their spay and neuters, that they then contact North Bay to bring the animals up to fill those spots. It's good to have a new partnership with the SPCA.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Oh,
Lieutenant, is that an increase in dogs in the shelter from last month's report?
Yes, they've had a couple incidents recently where they've had to, in the recent week, where they've had to take a few more animals in, and that's just, they haven't had time to go through the process to where they can either adopt them or return them to the owner.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Lieutenant. All right, moving on to item 2, presentation by Lake County Economic Development Corporation of the Lake County Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. Executive Director Flora, welcome.
Good evening. If I can get this to work. Oh, I don't, it's okay. Good evening, Mayor Claffey and members of the City Council. My name is Nicole Flora. I'm the Executive Director of the Lake County Economic Development Corporation. I'm here tonight to talk about the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, what it is and why we do it. So that the strategy is really a tool that our county will use to access more resources for economic development. It uses the current economy and the current unique strengths and obstacles of the area to build a plan for vitality and resilience while mitigating our obstacles. Why we do the SEDS, oh, next slide, sorry. Not going to be very good at this. Why we create a SEDS every 5 years is the long and the short of it is so that we can get more resources from the federal government to help our economy locally. We are not in the business of creating or recreating other people's plans. We've done a lot of research and outreach to use the plans that jurisdictions and nonprofits have for economic development and create a comprehensive overarching strategy. And who's in charge? So next slide, please. The SEDS process requires a committee, and it basically is seated by the 3 jurisdictions and then business leaders from Lake County industries. Next slide. The Lake County Economic Development Corporation was able to receive a grant to complete the comprehensive economic development strategy. And with that funding, we staffed and contracted out with Vicki Dole and Dr. Robert Eiler, as well as Michelle Scully, to do all of our research and outreach to the local communities and the jurisdictions. Next slide, please. So the process is really two-pronged. There's a lot of public engagement over, there's several hundred interviews, surveys, and other ways for people to interact with us through community outreach. And then Dr. Eiler and Vicki Dole were, as well as Michelle Scully, were really instrumental in creating a good paper trail of all of the plans that we researched and kind of coalesced into this one plan. And it's all supported by Dr. Eiler's data. Next slide, please. So with that, now that you know a little bit about the plan and why we create it, I'm going to have Dr. Eiler share with you some forecasting he developed for the plan. It's part of the online draft that you can see with the link that you have on the presentation. So Dr.
Thanks, Nicole.
Eiler, can you, there we go. I think he's unmuted now. Perfect. Thank you.
Yes,
For
can
being
you,
here, Dr. Eiler.
of course, can you hear me okay?
We cannot hear you.
Hello? Can you guys hear me now?
We'll be right
Nicole,
with
are you
you,
able to hear
Doctor.
me?
We're trying to
Oh.
get this sorted out. Feel free to keep talking.
Oh,
So
sure.
we'll know when you come through.
Very good. So can you hear me
Yes.
now?
City Clerk Swanson, they can hear him on Zoom, so there must
Oh.
be some issue on our end.
No worries. So let me go ahead and move through this. Nicole, if Nicole's not able to hear me, unfortunately, you're going to see these slides later. But in terms of this first slide is the current forecast that comes out of the Philadelphia Federal Reserve. There's a survey of 40 forecasters, and all those folks do every day of their lives is basically forecast the American economy. And their forecast comes out on a quarterly basis. And I use this as sort of the basis for looking forward at the national level as context for what's going to happen in Lake County. So you can see here, there's two columns for each of the three major data points that I look at here. The first set of data, which is under real GDP with that percentage, is the percentage change in inflation adjusted income at the national level, looking forward all the way through the end of 2027. So the new column is just as of August 2024. And you can see the previous column is 2.5 versus 2.6 under the new. The previous column is just one quarter before that, or 3 months ago. So actually, these forecasters feel like that for this year, the forecast has actually gotten a little bit more optimistic. Next year, it's pretty much the same. 2026 has gotten a little bit more optimistic. And 2027, where the fog really starts to creep in, really is not much change either. But the bottom line is there's really no recession in this forecast at all, which is very positive given a lot of the uncertainty. But if you look at the unemployment rate is nudged up from the last or the previous quarter's forecast across all those years. So we're watching very closely, and we'll come back to this hopefully in just a minute when we look at the labor market, that we're seeing a little bit of softening in the warm labor markets we've had basically since 2021. And that's going to lead to a very slow rising unemployment rate over time. Part of that slow rise and why those unemployment rates are so low, because even at 4% and rising to like 4.1 or 4.3 is worse, but so small in terms of how much worse it is. And those numbers are still so robust, is because we've had this shift in labor force, or the number of people that are working and actively looking for work, and really shrunk the number of people that are looking for work versus demand. That unemployment rising a little bit is probably more because people are trickling in looking for work and are not quite being soaked up as fast, but not necessarily people losing their jobs. So the unemployment rate and that really slow walk up is not much to worry about. And this is why those forecasts just to the left under real GDP look really relatively optimistic. And then the core PCE inflation is the Federal Reserve's kind of favorite inflation rate. You can see that that's trickling down toward 2027, and they don't really go much further than 3 years anyway, we should be back to where the Federal Reserve wants us at 2% by 2026. But it is slowly moving down, and that's one of the concerns of what's going on with interest rates. Nicole, if you're able to hear me, please click forward. So, folks, since Nicole's not really able to hear me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to summarize the other slides relatively quickly, and then we can move on. In terms of where we're going, there's a bunch of mixed signals out there in the news. So one of the things to be concerned about is whether or not we see interest rates come down and if equity markets remain relatively strong, even though we've had a lot of stomach aches the last few weeks. Some of that will depend on what happens globally with respect to conflict and ultimately things like the oil price and how that starts to transmit itself to customers or consumers being concerned about continuing to consume. And we might see more recessionary pressure over time because we cannot get rid of inflation. We start to see consumers really contract from the spending they've done because they're starting to lose savings and starting to increase how much credit they have. And that can lead to more credit delinquencies and people just not wanting to consume as much because they're concerned about the risk in that consumption.
Can you hear me?
Nicole, can you hear me now? I can hear you, yes.
I think I'm just another person who's online with you. I can hear you talking, but I don't think they can hear you in the boardroom yet or the
I know.
council chamber.
I know. Okay. Thank you.
So I'm texting with them to let them know.
Okay. And it might just be you and me. I don't know how many people are on. It looks like there's only 8 people on. But bottom line is this, is that in terms of the national forecast, we have to see how the global economy continues to move forward. And if we have any flare-ups in the major conflict areas, and there's been a little bit more movement in the negative over the last few weeks. But the core economy here in the United States actually looks pretty good, going at least toward the end of this year. The election and what we see in terms of Congress and presidency on the other side will help determine some of that. The jobs forecast for Lake County and regionally looks relatively positive, even though Lake County was one of the breakout counties coming out of the pandemic time in the North Bay. That growth of jobs has slowed down. A lot of that's because we haven't seen as much growth continuing in jobs like, let's say, in construction and manufacturing. They've grown, but more slowly over the last 18 months. And that's kind of slowed the movement we saw coming out of the pandemic, basically from 2021 to 2023 in Lake County down. It's true of both Humboldt and Mendocino counties that we've seen a similar slowdown. And then we see a little bit more of a pickup for Sonoma and Napa counties moving toward 2030 than in Lake, Mendocino, and in Humboldt. But for the most part, the forecast toward 2030 is relatively positive for Lake County, and those data are reflected in the report. Industrially speaking, growth looks like it's going to come in transportation, construction, manufacturing, not as much in farming. One of the weird things about the labor data is farm labor data are still not counting cannabis jobs that are cultivation based. They might be counting manufacturing jobs, but there is no explicit code for manufacturing in cannabis nor for retail in cannabis yet. So those jobs are that suggest that the current labor market data are undercounting the true number of people working. We will see how that goes. Nicole, are you able to hear me now? Oh, okay. Finally, on housing. The housing forecast is relatively positive, but very small positivity for California overall. Certain places like San Bernardino County, Orange County, Santa Barbara, and a little sprinkle of the sort of suburban portions of Los Angeles County look like they're actually going to grow in terms of housing prices. But most of the state is probably going to see a little bit of downward pressure on housing prices, including Lake County, Sonoma, Marin, Lake, Mendocino, and Humboldt counties. Those 5 counties have had a more downward pressure than most counties in California over the last 18 months in terms of housing prices, but it's very small increments. We're not talking about 10 or 15% change. We're really talking about maybe 4 or 5% change. The current forecast through next summer for Lake County is about 4.5% down in home prices. And over the last 18, 24 months, we've seen housing prices slowly fade in these areas, taking away some of the initial gains. But all in all, the forecast for Lake County in terms of the context of this CEDS report is positive, but with some caveats around how the national picture is going to move forward as context for what will happen underneath the CEDS. And the housing market is basically giving back some of the original boost and gains we saw before. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Nicole. And if you are in contact with the board, please let them know that Nicole should now continue. And thank you. Nicole, if you can hear me, it's time to move forward. Thank you.
The message I'm getting is they're trying to present or fix their audio from the council chamber. So just hold tight.
Okay, thanks a lot. Appreciate you acting as go-between.
No problem.
Well, now the recording, I guess. Hmm. Are you able to hear them now? It looks like Nicole's talking, but I can't hear them.
No, I think all of us on Zoom.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't hear her talking, Rob.
wow.
I've tried texting both her and Alan, but I don't know that they've got their phones there and available, so.
Okay. Thanks, Vicky.
Yep.
Test. Test. Test.
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, great.
Thank you. We'll get started shortly.
It's not getting the signal.
You start over. And the mic's not.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We're back to recess. Ms. Flora, you can continue.
Sure, so I think we have all of our communication up now. Vicki and Dr. Eiler are both on. Was there any questions that you have about some of that data that you'd like him to kind of reiterate before we move forward?
Just a general question is that this is based on California, not the data that he suggests is based on California, not the whole US.
Dr. Eiler, do you want to address
Yeah,
that?
Nicole, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So the data that were in the labor market forecast and the housing market forecast are based on California data as a comparison to Lake County and some of the North Bay and North Coast counties. The first slide, which was for the was real GDP, unemployment rate, and the so-called PCE price index, those are national numbers as context for what happens in Lake County and in the North Bay. But the labor market and the housing market are all California based.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Eiler. I'm going to keep moving and then we'll open it up for questions for the two of you again at the end, if that's okay. So as I was saying, there's these two kind of sections of the plan. The first, it has an umbrella type strategy that will help guide economic development into the future of this 5-year plan. In that part of the plan, which we talk about with goals, objectives, and some industry work, it's really focusing on the building blocks of the economy, things like market-ready properties, workforce, and then maximizing our capital and resources. Next slide, please. So there's a lot on this slide, but I wanted to touch on a few things briefly. The more detailed objectives talk about economic diversification. We'll talk about development areas in just a minute, but really the idea with this is so that we are a little bit more resilient through market changes over time. Visitor amenities, you would always expect to see recreation, hospitality, tourism type things in this category. But what was fascinating was when we worked with the community, every industry in our community is asking for more rooms, more accommodations, and more meeting spaces. Agriculture, healthcare, government, all across the board. This is a need for everyone to grow and be able to host. I want to skip to infrastructure and public safety for just a moment. This is really basic, just being able to move people, resources, raw materials, and data more dependably. Broadband, water, sewer, roads, et cetera, basic services. And then the last two, the entrepreneurship and small businesses and the talent development. These are what I'm most passionate about and what you'll see a lot of work that the EDC will work on. This is really this idea of growing our own, being able to provide resources to the people who live here and want to be a part of the skilled workforce or start their own business. Next slide, please. And lastly, I just wanted to have a brief introduction to the target industries. These parts of our economy are developed to the point where they're ripe for additional investment, and we're seeing forecasts in increased firms and jobs. So they're really where we want to focus some of our work. I did want to note that the SEDS committee added exporting firms for the basic premise that if you export a product, you're bringing new money into the economy and the pie gets bigger. And then local serving businesses. This is really important to the committee in the fact that it's not just services to local residents and making workforce more attractive here, but it's business to business type businesses so that it can support all of the other industries' growth as well. Next slide, please. Oh, go ahead.
You have agriculture or agribusiness, and then you also, oh, I'm sorry. You have agribusiness, and then you have viticulture there. Why are?
There is some data that supports both. Agribusiness really also touches in tourism in some ways. They're not all distinct. They're all going to kind of wrap together.
Yeah.
But we pull them out separately because a lot of times we work for
Well, yeah, I think of viticulture as a part of agribusiness.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Next slide, please. So these next two slides really touch on the second part of the plan. And this is when the jurisdictions and nonprofits have already developed projects that are closer to shovel ready. And they're going to be seeking funding from federal agencies for those implementation steps. So, I don't need to describe these. You know what these projects are. They're all listed in the SEDS, as well as projects that are similar to these for the other two jurisdictions. Next slide, please. And then I also wanted to point out that we had some pretty good interaction and collaboration with the local tribes, and two of the tribal projects that are listed in the SEDS are within the jurisdictional boundaries of the city, both with tribal health facilities and the Elam's tribe, the Elam tribes retail development here in Lakeshore. So with that, I conclude our report. I hope you kind of got the general sense of what it's for and why we're here, and hopefully it can be leveraged both by the city and by other agencies in the county to move the economy to a better place.
Thank you. Councilmember Purdock.
Ms. Flor, one of the things we've struggled with is trying to develop core employees that can provide the labor to some of these businesses that you're recommending. Thank you very much. Do we have that core labor group that can work within hospitality, the restaurant, agribusiness, those types of things? I know businesses have tried and failed because they couldn't find good employees.
Yeah, so I think the crux of your question is are we going to see an increase in labor over the future
Correct.
in order to support this job growth? And the answer is yes. We are seeing, the data is proving out that we have more kids in school. If you follow that line, that means eventually they will be part of the labor force. It's the success of those individuals is going to be our work now to create collaborations to train them into the professions that they need to have a living wage.
Okay, so are we working with the local community colleges, trying to develop those programs?
Yes, I do think that there's collaborations. I mean, one thing that this plan is not something that the Economic Development Corporation will take as marching orders to complete the whole thing. It's really an aggregate of a bunch of different players. So I believe that there are, that Council Member Slutin has worked a lot with the community college here. I know that there's plans for more additional collaboration there. And I'm actually working with Mendocino College and Sutter to do additional training on that side of the lake as well. So I think that there is a drive and there's enough attention on the matter that it can happen. It can.
Thank you.
Coalesce.
Yes, well, you mentioned, I think you did mention housing in the comments there, but you didn't really go into it a lot. What is your feeling as to what, or should they try to be looking to develop both housing, filling that need, and also creating jobs with the different developments that we're looking at, the airport, other industries on the resorts, more lodging, more restaurants. How does that fit in here? Which one do you think should one come before the other, or is there?
I think there's efforts on both, on both topics. I know that the county is looking at a comprehensive plan that will include the city jurisdiction. And I've been part of the work groups for that to help educate them on the data that we have for the SEDS. I don't think that it's a either or. I think it has to gradually happen together at the same time. Otherwise, you're going to have less of one or the other.
The infrastructure should be similar for both of them, then we need to promote both.
Yeah.
Roads.
I think we have to be working on all of it.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Seaton. And several years ago, Dr. Eiler gave a presentation, and one thing he did mention that's still kind of stuck in my head is the airport, county airport. Is there any movement from the county to actually start doing an updated plan, overall plan on that, acquire some additional properties there too? Because it's an underused facility, in my opinion. And it could be a big economic engine, like I've seen in other places.
Vicki, can you hear me, Vicki? Do you have any updates from your work with the county on the airport property?
I didn't hear the question. It was kind of cutting out a lot. Update on the airport property?
Yeah, I think Dirk is referring to the county's airport, not the airport development in the city, but rather the one that you would have talked to Ben about.
Okay, I haven't gotten any additional information since we developed this draft, but we certainly have time to add to it before we submit it.
Yeah, I haven't been a part, there was a work group that was put together on the airport several years ago, and I believe that it kind of dissolved at one point. And I don't know that it's been picked up again. It is a question that I can ask Ben from the county, but it wasn't anything that they brought to us.
Because it was specifically mentioned by Dr. Eiler several years ago that it could be an economic engine for the county.
Yeah,
And,
I think I know a little bit about it. We can talk about it offline.
okay,
Yeah, but I'll ask the county as well.
thanks.
Excellent. Ms. Laura, thank you so much for coming out and this great presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Eiler and Vicki. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Council Mayor and Nicole. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 3, presentation by the Lower Lake High School Future Farmers of America. So come on up. Ms. Flores just gave us the goals for the future. You guys have to accomplish all that.
So, hello everyone, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, we are the Lower Lake FFA Fair team, and we're here to tell you about our animals that we're taking to the Lake County Fair this year. So my name is Allie Beckstead. I'm the president of Lower Lake FFA, and I'm a senior at Lower Lake High School. This year, I'm taking 2 lambs to the Lake County Fair. Their names are Tinkerbell and Wendy. This is my 2nd year taking lambs to the fair and my 8th year participating overall. And we're here to invite you to the Lake County Fair Junior Livestock Auction on October 31st at 12 p.m. at the Lake County Fairgrounds.
October 31st.
October 31st, 12 p.m. Oh, sorry. August 31st. Sorry. August 31st. October, sorry, oh my gosh. August 31st at 12 p.m.
Isn't that Labor Day weekend, I believe?
Yes, it is. On Saturday.
Saturday.
Okay.
Oh, now you broke it.
I'm sorry. Well, I am Mayor Gutierrez. I am the Lower Lake FFA's vice president. This is my 2nd year this is my 2nd year out there, and my 1st year taking lambs. My lambs' names are Buddy and Buzz and Woody. Sorry, I call him Buddy. A nickname. Buzz just sounds like a bee, so I just call him Buddy. You may know them from Toy Story, the names, and yeah, I'll let you guys with our secretary. Hi, my name is Emily Allard. I'm the secretary of Lower Lake FFA. And this is my first year doing fair and my first year in office. I'm a senior and I transferred Lower Lake my junior year, and I've been active ever since within FFA. I'm taking a Bora goat, piece of leather, and a turkey. My goat is named Ivy and my turkey is named Willow.
Hi guys. Hi, my name is Cheyenne Smith. I am the treasurer of Lower Lake FFA. This is my second year taking market steers to the Lake County Fair, but this is my first year taking white broad-breasted turkeys to the Lake County Fair. My steer is a Hereford Angus cross, and his name is Coulter, and I have two turkeys. My Tom's name is Merle, and my hen's name is Betsy. This is my third year, I believe, being an active member of Lower Lake FFA, and this is my second year being in office.
Thank you.
I am Alfonso Ramirez. I am the sentinel of Lower Lake FFA. I am a sophomore. I'm taking two lambs. Their names are McLovin and Rosemary. And this is my first year at fair and my second year of FFA.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Joel Vincent.
Down.
My name is Joel Vincent. I'm a member of FFA. This is my second year, and this is my first year selling at Local Fair. I'm bringing two white broad-breasted turkeys. The name of Turketta and Turkington.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nicholas Williams. I am a sophomore at Lower Lake High. This is my second year being an active member of FFA. This is my first year doing fair. I am taking a turkey, white broad breast. Her name is Tom. Her name is Cheryl, and I'm taking two meat birds, chickens, named Fortune Spoon.
So that's our fair team. Very excited. We're very excited to go to the fair. We've been working very hard all summer. Most of us got our animals in either April or May, with the exception of Cheyenne. When did you get your steer? March? Maybe? She got her steer in March, so she's had her steer for a very long time. So we're very proud of her. We're very excited to go to the fair. Do you guys have any questions for us?
So if someone were to go to this auction for the first time, what's the experience like? How do they participate?
So there is a buyer breakfast at 9:30 at the fairgrounds. There's also a new buyer registration, I believe at 9 a.m. And the auction is up in the big barn at the Lake County Fairgrounds. And there's like booths, tables, you'll see people, they have like clipboards, they should be wearing like name tags as well. You go there, register, and then there's the buyer breakfast at 9:30. That's an amazing opportunity. You just get to sit there and, eat your food in the barn. It's really nice, comfy. And then the auction will start at 12 p.m.
So meat prices are through the roof. I'm just curious, how do you think you guys are going to do in the fair as far as marketing your livestock? And what does a chance, I was going to, thankfully the mayor asked, how do we get involved with this? And what's the chance we could win in that auction?
So yeah, the fair prices have been going up a lot. I've noticed a spike since 2020. Like I said, I've been doing the fair since I was in 5th grade, I believe, with 4-H. So it's been increasing every year. Last year I made about $3,000 with my lambs, so that was really good. I can't recall price per pound, but I believe I had like about $10 to $13 per pound. I know turkeys are about $1,000 to $1,300 like per head, and I couldn't tell you. Do you guys know anything else?
That's pretty good, thank you.
And I believe goats go to like $10 a pound. Not sure, not really a good price.
No, that's fine. And I know that it's subject to the auction, obviously. But
Yeah.
I appreciate you giving some insight to the folks who may be watching on TV. Then I'd like to turn the mic over to my friend here, who actually helped me get FFA started in Lower Lake. He's humble and probably wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
They already know that. What do you think you're gonna get for the steer before I?
What are you looking for?
From my understanding, in prior years, dollar per pound was around $8 to $10. Last year, the average was like $5 or $6. I got $5.75 a pound, so almost like 8,000. So I predict that it's probably gonna be close to the same as last year, probably like $5 per pound.
What's your steer weight?
I weighed him about a month ago, and he was 40 pounds away from market weight.
Okay. Now tell everybody a little bit about how you approach this. This FFA is something to teach these young people about life, about budgeting, about doing all those things. So give me, whichever one of you wants to, the process you go through when you buy your animal to begin with, and
Sorry, what was your question again? Just the process of buying and stuff?
the process, do you do a budget?
So what most of our fair team usually does, what we usually do is we get an ag loan and we go a little bit over what we think we're going to spend. So we try and like budget everything out, figure out how many times a week we are going to buy grain, hay, halters, things like that. And we figure out how much like a bale of hay is and hay is. And we kind of like give a rough estimate and like we can
So you have to give make an estimate of rate of gain, for instance?
We have to kind of get an estimate and then go over on our loan.
Mhm.
And then after fair, we just pay the loan back. And then what I did last year is I used my profit to pay for this year, so I took out side loan. And some people just do that. So like you can always ask your teacher for like future years what other students have done. So like that's a good reference to go off of. But you just have to budget how much your feed is, how much your hay is, halters, like show sticks, and the animal itself also. So a little bit complicated, but if you get it down.
Our city manager is an old FFA person, still has your jacket somewhere, didn't you? Does that sound about like what you did when you were in FFA in Indiana?
Yes, I'm, love the program, proud of former FFA president back in 1996 in Indiana. And also received my National Star Farmer Award, so love what you guys are doing.
What did you name your animals? Because that seems important.
Can't name the animals. I eat them.
No.
They have great names.
No, that's part of their market.
Is that part of the deal?
Yeah.
The
We actually
name of them
have
and-
to name our
You'll see their, the description of the animal, and if you go before, the night before, whatever, you can look at all their animals.
Yeah.
And they're got their name, has a little description of what you've done, what you are, who you are, and your goals. So, and by the way, if anybody's interested, Lower Lake Community Action Group, Mike Salter, we've got proxies, so if you want to join in and maybe join with your buddy, put some money up and give that to Mike, he'll do your bidding for you. We're of course partial to Lower Lake FFA, but there's a lot of other 4-H and FFA chapters from around the county there as well. So it's a great thing to support. And I hope that we will see, everybody in this room there. It's something that we should support. These young people are training for life. I'm really proud of them. They help us at all our dinners at Lower Lake Community Action Group. Plus, we went to Calusa to a farm show together last year. They do a lot of competitions, speaking competitions. You have one coming up in December. It really teaches them about life and how to communicate well, and it does a terrific job. Like I said, it's 8 or 10 years since the program's been started, and seen it improve every year. We've got, how many young people do you have in your program now?
So it's kind of hard to estimate right now because the school year just started. This is most of our active members. We had a lot of seniors graduate last year, but I would say about 15 to 20 members as of last year. We actually have our first chapter meeting coming up next week, so we're hoping to pull in a lot of new people and recruit them to do our competitions, maybe do fair next year, go to our conferences, and just really get involved.
Well, good luck in the fair.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
For your time.
August 31st?
August 31st, 12 p.m. at the Lake County Fairgrounds.
Gotcha,
Thank you
okay.
so much.
We'll be there.
we'll now move on to item F, public comment. This is the time for any member of the public to address the city council on any matter that's not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. The Brown Act, with limited exceptions, does not allow the council or staff to discuss issues brought forth under public comment. If you are on Zoom, you are welcome to make a comment in the chat feature on Zoom. Please restrict your comments here in chamber to 3 minutes, and this is by no way required. But if you are an FFA, I want to hear what your animal name was. So we'll start off with Ms. Sheridan.
Thank you. My name is Leslie Sheridan, and I am calling about something related to economic development and tourism. Something that you guys saw the presentation on recently. And it is the drug dealers who are allowed to live here and prolificate themselves without any constraints. And it's, in my case, I live next to a drug dealer whose operation is expanding exponentially with the guy who lives across the street as well. This particular, last week, I had this drug dealer right to my face, yell in my face with a threat. Which of course is kind of scary to say the least. I called the police. I basically had the police come out. I got the report, and there's nothing about what the guy said to me at all in the report. All of the references is I called. Nothing else. Not what they said. Not what they threatened me. It's just astounding. And so I was just blown away. And so I asked the gal who was at the desk, Chelsea Banks, I said, why is this not in here? Oh, I don't know. We'll look into it. And I said, well, I want to give you the comment now. She took the comment. So I have both copies, the original comment report that was given to me, the second one where she typed up what I had to say. So they say they're going to look into it. So my question is, who writes these reports? Why are they not being written appropriately? I also, about a week ago, called Detective Flores to open a case on this. Never heard back. Never, ever heard back. I tried to get a restraining order in this county because, as you can imagine, it's pretty scary having somebody make this threat to you when you live right next door to them. I could not even get a temporary restraining order, and then we have to wait until August 27th. I will just say that I have friends who have been in this county for a very long time, and they say that there are police officers as well as judges in this county who are in on the take in some of these operations. So I don't know what I can do, but the county is not protecting and serving me.
If you could connect with one of our lieutenants here, just make them aware of your case, and we'll follow up after.
Okay.
Thank you. Sir, I don't have your slip yet, but I saw you put one in, so why don't you come up and introduce yourself, and you can go next turn.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know who to take. Yes. I'm Harvey Bateman, and I want to commend the city and stuff and what they have accomplished. But I feel there's a couple areas that we have slipped backwards on. And one of them is code enforcement. I know they've got their hands full, but I have a neighbor that I've been dealing with for years and has been turned into code enforcement several times. And the city actually put our place in. So I'm trying to protect the city's investment as well as ours. And but if we have a fire, that whole block is going to go up because of the garbage and stuff in the neighbors' houses, yards, and junk cars that are torn apart. No license. Some of them have been registered and stuff since 2019. And she has the address and everything. And I invite every one of the council out. I know you can't do it all at once. So, but you're welcome to come out. I'd love to show you our place, number one, and show you what we're dealing with. So maybe we can let everybody get together and work on it, because it is getting worse. And another stuff, we have slid back on animal control. I know their books all it and everything, but we had a neighbor that tried for 5 months to get animal control to come out and help on dogs because her mother had died. She was there taking care of the estate. There's 2 dogs. And they didn't come out. They finally had to load them up in 2 cars and take them all the way to Washington. Which, you know, that 5 months dealing with that, I don't think is quite right. You have to do that. But, you know, there are other things, but I know I'm limited to 3 minutes. I do want to thank the police department and everything. You know, you've done an excellent job. So, and I know your hands are short and tied a lot too. But like you said, I would love to have each and every one of you out so you can see what we're dealing with and it's only getting worse.
Thank you, sir. And you said your address and your contact information are on this.
Yes, thank you. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Bateman. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments here in the chamber? Yes.
Good evening. I just want to make a comment that the mic is always super low. It would be really nice if the members of the community had the same volume and loudness as the council members. It's really hard to hear back there. Seems to be an ongoing issue with different meetings. I'm not sure if people just need to get up into this thing. I'm a kind of tall guy though, and he's a kind of tall guy. Just hoping maybe we can turn this thing up a little bit so we can actually hear what's going on in the chamber. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments here in the chamber? Please come forward.
Hi, good evening, Margaret Garcia, can you hear me? City of Clear Lake. The presentation it was given seemed informative. I came in kind of after it had started. But what I wanted to, I guess, stress as far as all of the future forecasts for housing and tourism, all of that is it just circles around the lake and the lake's condition. And just for your information, I had my family had their annual reunion. We've been here since the 50s, and they didn't go in the water. They rented a boat, they rented a jet ski, but they didn't feel comfortable swimming, like actually getting into the lake. So it's great for fishing because the fishermen, all they want to do is catch the fish. But I hope that some of the projects that you guys discussed, the cleaning of that new project that's going in, they're going to start their filtering of the water. I don't know when that's going to start, but I hope positive things can be done regarding the lake and the quality of the water.
Ms. Garcia, you're always a very engaged resident. Have you shared similar comments with the county? Because the lake really does fall into the county.
You let me know and I will do that.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I had a question. Where is the county airport that you're talking about?
Lamson Field, it is between Kelseyville and Lakeport.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Have a good evening.
And one other thing that, thank you, you're all set. One other thing I want to bring up, the Lake County EDC site has a lot of this information on their site from the presentation earlier. So I know if you came late, it's available there. I know we got here in the chamber cut off a bit, so it's available on the website. Any other comments here in the chamber? All right, seeing none, Madam Clerk, any comments on Zoom?
There are no comments on the Zoom, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. We'll bring it back and move on to item G, the consent agenda. Any council member want to pull on that? Any member of the public have a comment? Madam Clerk, any comments on Zoom?
There are no comments on this item on Zoom.
I want to introduce a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second that.
I have a motion from Councilmember Sluten, a second from Councilmember Kramer. Please vote on your report.
Motion passes with unanimous vote of the council.
Thank you. Moving on to item 11, a presentation and discussion of a case study of water district consolidation in the Ukiah Valley. Mr. Flora.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. So, I want to introduce you tonight to Sean White, who's the Director of Water for the City of Ukiah. He's got quite a impressive resume related to water, particularly over in Mendocino County, Sonoma County area. What he's here to talk about is they've been on quite a path to consolidate some of the water districts in Ukiah Valley, and recently created a joint powers authority between the city and 2 other districts. And so we asked Mr. White to come when the water committee was at the Conte Water District Board meeting several weeks ago. And so he kind of gave an overview of what was happening there and just, you know, a lot of great efforts that they've been undertaking there. And we thought it would be beneficial for the council to kind of hear some of that experience as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. White. Welcome, Mr. White.
Thank you for having me. My name is Sean White. I am Director of Water Resources for the City of Ukiah. I oversee our water, wastewater, and recycled water utility. So just a quick introduction. Ukiah obviously is the county seat in Mendocino County. It's an old town. We have been operating a water utility in some form or fashion since the late 1870s. But like lots of small rural cities in California, Northern California in particular, we're actually incorporated area that is the full service city. It's quite small. And what were once disconnected surrounding areas that have now become coterminous with the city are served largely by special districts. We have a number of special districts to the north, south, and east of Ukiah, including Willow County Water District to the south, Millview to the north, Calpella north of that, Redwood Valley north of that, and then Rogina, which is a private mutual to the east, and Millview is also to the east of us. And really, those were all set up at some point to serve neighborhoods and developments that were outside the city and didn't have any alternative. And as the years went on, you saw a very similar dynamic that you see in other places where lots of infighting, lots of lawsuits, lots of disagreement, and really in the rearview mirror to the detriment of all of our entities. And many, many years ago, when I had long hair, even longer than Mr. Ford, I worked for Sonoma Water. And when we go up there to meet with people from Mendocino County, I worked for a very wise man named Bob Beach, and he would always make jokes to the effect that, like, normally I would have sent you guys up there a while ago to divide and conquer, but they've already done that for us, so let's just go take their candy. And to be fair, that is what has happened to Mendocino County over the years. You know, we've just never looked down the road. We've never had the big picture. It's always been squabbling amongst neighbors. I started working full-time in Ukiah in 2008. Since that time, we've had a number of efforts to sort of bring these parties together and form a more cohesive band. And others had similar ideas. Some of them were here. Bill Kohler, who was from Lake County, started the Upper Rush River Water Agency back in 2014. And I had some efficiencies, and basically through that JPA, the Willow County Water District essentially was doing a managerial consolidation of the surrounding entities. But all of those entities preserved all of their boards and all of the things that still went with being standalone special districts, which still led to infighting, they're all being run by the same place. And we also just had very, sort of ground level governance issues with getting even people to serve, for people to serve that really have the background to serve. You know, it's one form or another in the greater Ukiah Valley. There are 35 board seats for water in our tiny little town of 16,000. And many times, like I went to Calpella County Water District in the past. I think I went to 3 meetings before they even had a quorum. And 3 of those 5, well, 2 of those were a husband and wife from the same household. And look, I am thankful people step forward and serve, but I think in the overall view of better governance, that's not necessarily the best situation. So as we've been working towards building on the Upper Rushmore Water Agency, I've been meeting with Jared Walker, who runs Willow, who's a very nice, dynamic young man, and trying to figure out, what's the future. And about the time we started meeting, I was contacted by some longtime peers at the State Water Resource Control Board about this program called SAFER. And SAFER has been around a while, but the state board is having trouble regulating all of these small districts, having a really hard time getting them to comply. I'll get to why later. And they really emphasize this existing program. What this program does is provides significant financial incentive for agencies to consolidate. So I attended a couple meetings, a couple workshops, and it sounded very promising. Basically, they will pay you up to $60,000 per connection to consolidate. And that's not sort of a lump sum that you get and you can go to the casino with. But basically, if you decide to consolidate and you design the infrastructure that's needed to intertie and to rebuild the system, and to make it reliable and have all the things that we need to have, they will pay up to that amount to help cover those costs. And when you start multiplying it by the numbers we have, which is 10,000, 60,000 turns into a very reasonable sum of money. So we began meeting, and what we did is we convened an ad hoc. They had 2 representatives from all of the districts in the Greater Ukiah Valley, and we talked it out. And we talked it out for a very long time, for 2 years. We met monthly, but I will say in all my years working in Snowman and Mendocino, it was the first time. And I don't really think it was because of this carrot. It was really just, there was like an ideological shift in our community, I think largely created by some of the austerity that was driven by the last drought. There were haves and have-nots in the Greater Ukiah Valley, and people were like, we can do better than this. So we met for 2 years. In addition to having our ad hocs, elected at our ad hocs, we had every agency's attorneys present at every single meeting, because what we really didn't want to do was have a conversation with elected and then go back and have a conversation with their attorney, and then just create these circles of non-productivity. So everybody was there. There were really no rules other than we're here to solve problems, not have arguments. And after 2 years, we created a JPA that basically makes us one functional entity called the Ukiah Valley Water Authority. And this JPA, unlike most JPAs, like the Upper Rushmore Water Agency, it sort of keeps everybody intact in perpetuity. To qualify for money from SAFER, this one directly contemplates and directs for us to consolidate over time. So for the city of Ukiah to absorb these other agencies over time until the end, where the city will be the last existing. So that took us about 2 years. We're now having regular meetings as the water authority, and the city will be taking over operations of Millview and Redwood Valley starting January 1st of 2025. At this time, 2 of the entities have not opted into the JPA, that'd be Willow and Calpella. I think after we moved forward, it started, they had a bit of seller's remorse or whatever you call it, not signing up. And they are still working on the last few details, but I anticipate they will also join in the near future. basically every water agency from Burke Hill Road, which is the southern sort of entrance to Ukiah, all the way to Redwood Valley will be under one roof and run by the city. So altogether, that occurs about 10,000 connections. The city of Ukiah has 5,000. Willow, Millview, and Redwood are all in the 1,400 to 1,900 connections. And then Calpella is a little mighty mouse up to 18. But they've been instrumental in keeping us on track. So really, why are we doing this? What are the benefits to all of it? And for us, it's one to have one unified vision in the greater Ukiah Valley. So we're all moving the same direction instead of poking each other in the eye. But also it's to achieve a level of scalability that allows us to do the things that we've needed to do for a long time. Have our own engineers, have our own planners, have a water rights attorney, have compliance staff, basically everything you need to do or have to be really a sustainable agency in California. The level of regulation and everything that's landing in this state in relation to water is very difficult, if not impossible, for small entities like Calpella to comply with. They just don't have the people, they don't have the rate base, they don't have the mechanics, they don't have any of it. And for us to all pull together is just a much bigger, much more scalable, sustainable utility in the long run. One of the things that people have asked us is, why is the city doing this? Because in the end of the day, during the last drought, the city was just fine. We have really, really old senior rights. We have amazing groundwater facilities. We have recycled water. And even during the worst of the drought, we had no conservation requirements inside the city. And we had no trouble making ends meet. We even exported water to the city of Fort Bragg when they ran out. But the reason we're doing it is all these people surrounding us did not have that situation. And at the end of the day, there are neighbors, there who you see when you go to a soccer game to see your kids or your grandkids or whatever, and they all shop in the city of Ukiah. And at the end of the day, all of their various constraints, some have had moratoriums off and on. Redwood Valley's had a moratorium since the late 80s. Has really become sort of a financial limiting factor for our region. And it's really in all of our best interests to just sort of create one durable, sustainable, capable water utility that will become sort of the underpinning of our whole region. So that's what we're doing. We have applied for our States for Planning grant now. That is done. And we meet regularly. And I think with that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to stay in here and field them.
Mr. White, I think a very real concern, and I think it is potentially justified, is that there could potentially be a drop in quality or a drastic increase in rates under a consolidation like this. Did you experience that at all in your region?
You know, it's really kind of interesting. Rates were the reason Willow and Calpella did not join. The city has higher rates than both of those, but I'll tell you, having done this for a long time, their rates are unsustainably low. And, you know, I can remember when I worked for Marin Municipal Water District back in the 80s. There was a whole board there that, you know, tried to make their entire career on keeping rates low. And then in the early 90s, we watched the entire Oakland Hills across the bay burn down because they didn't have sufficient flow, they didn't have sufficient storage. And we realized that was a horrible idea. And then our rates basically tripled so we could build a good system. The city's rates are higher because they come with water. They come with water rights, they come with attorneys, and they come with beautiful facilities. Redwood Valley to the north is probably less than 5% less than the cities. And it comes with no water, dilapidated facilities, and a giant pile of debt that they cannot escape. So the rates are a part of it, but what you get for your money is also a part of it. I'd much rather have an expensive car that was beautiful and worked well than an expensive car that never ran and didn't look good. And that is what is happening in some of the other areas. And again, it's really not because they are poorly managed or because the staff there are bad. As we've been cross-training with them, there are a lot of great, hardworking people there. They just don't have the scale and the in-house guidance to get them to that finish line that we have. You know, the city of Ukiah is basically larger than the other surrounding entities combined, and we're already benefiting from scale that they simply can't achieve. And as we merge, I think they're going to see their rates essentially become the same as the cities. So for Redwood Valley, that's a few percentage points. For Millview, that's probably 10. But for Willow, it will be significant, probably double. But their rates right now for a typical household are about $20 to $25, which is just not realistic. So, and while they're enjoying the benefits of deferred maintenance now, when that comes home to roost, it is shocking. You know, I always tell people that we all know it's not a great cost savings that you've not changed the oil in your car. And I feel the same way about infrastructure deferred maintenance. It hurts when you do it, but in the long run, doing the work today is always cheaper than doing it later. So there will be some rate increases for some of the ones that have, like I said, very, very low rates. But their level of service and their quality of water will improve as well.
Councilmember Kramer?
Yes, and by the way, I think your hairstyle looked just fine. Anyhow.
Thank you.
As in listening to you again, I of course heard you the first time at the Canocti meeting. How's the state water board been to work with in this process?
Yeah, you know, I've been working with the state board for forever, and this is a great program, right? A lot of times it can be very difficult to get their attention, period. It can take forever to get water rights permits modified. I've had all of those experiences, but they have a lot of pressure on them from the actual state board to get consolidations done through SAFER. So they have been very eager to help and sort of lead us through the way, to the point where I've had in other endeavors with the state work very hard to even get a meeting, and they basically have set up monthly meetings with us. They usually have about 10 staffers on board just to make sure we're getting what we need and things are moving along. So far, it's been terrific.
And it sounds like from your comments that the infrastructure is something that may have driven some of these other water districts in the end to consolidate, just simply because there's older.
Yeah, I think it's all relative, right? I don't know that some of it, in particular, like the line level staff, thought their infrastructure was really any different than anybody else's. So we all started seeing what everybody else had, and the disparity is honestly, it's staggering. I think it was really the disparity in impacts during the drought that really motivated this. You know, like I said, all of these things are now coterminous with the city, and if you live by the high school in Ukiah, you could be on one side of the street and have all the water you ever needed and have lawn and vegetables, and you can be on the other side of the street and be on 50% conservation and your whole yard is dead. Or you can live in Redwood Valley and be on human health and safety, 60 gallons per person per day. And you know, it's just the have not thing really, I think, hit home.
So is Redwood Valley able to tie in somehow with water districts to the south?
Not yet, no. They do have an emergency intertime between Millview and Redwood, which they use every day. That's how long that emergency has been going on. That is an actual real emergency, but that connection doesn't have the capacity to give them an actual high quality of life radius size for.
So interties aren't the end all do all.
So what we'll be trying to do through this program is build the infrastructure so they can have a reasonable lifestyle in one year, which they don't have right now.
Thank you.
Councilmember Salute.
How did the fire chief over there respond to the consolidation effort?
Well, yeah, someone asked me that question earlier. I'm not sure how that's really relevant, but it's kind of ironic in our area. The JPA we created is actually modeled after the consolidation of fire districts that happened in the Ukiah Valley. So we now have this thing called the Ukiah Valley Fire Authority. It's no coincidence that it's called the Ukiah Valley Water Authority. And they entered into consolidation JPA probably 5 or 6 years ago. And we basically modeled our initial draft of the JPA after that. Similarly, though, or not similarly, but our fire departments know also about the disparity in the services. I had a fire at our water treatment plant in 2023. Wasn't our fire, it came from an adjoining ranch property that jumped the river, and our fire department went around on the river to basically start letting things on the backside, open a hydrant from Regina, and no water came out at all. Not one bit. We've had similar incidences outside the city of Ukiah, and where we had a hotel fire, and that hydrant had water but insufficient pressure. So I think our fire people would like to see the type of water that they have available in the city.
Thank you.
Councilmember Brown.
Thank you very much. A wise man once told us in this chamber that we should use other people's money. How hard is it to get grants to consolidate or kind of make that funding happen for you?
You know, I've had ridiculously good luck. So I've been at the city of Ukiah now for 9 years, and since that time, I received about $95 million in grant money.
Excuse me?
State. Yeah.
That is 95 million?
Yeah, that's correct.
Mm.
And in this effort, we'll probably be asking for kind of the magnitude of 50 million for our consolidation, and I think we will get it. It's important to understand how the grant machine works. And one of the things we have to our advantage, whether we like it or not, is the state thinks we're poor here, right? And there were times when the state board had big pots of money available for different things, water utilities in particular, and agencies like when I used to work for Sun Water or Met in LA or some of the big ones in the Central Valley, they had the people who write the grants and design the things, and they stole the money. So after that, I think steal it, they were just
Figuratively speaking.
they were competitive, and they have the best things because they have the best things. So since then, you know, the state usually has some set aside in almost every grant programs for DACs. And what's really kind of sad is a lot of times, even though there's money set aside for DACs just don't have the institutional capacity to pursue it. So it sits there and gets stale. So I've made a wonderful career out of eating stale bread and bringing it home. And I will tell you that if you do it a time or three and develop a reputation as a DAC that can put projects on the ground and do a good job and comply and do all the things, you'll become a preferred customer, and it gets easier as you demonstrate success.
Thank you.
Wonderful, Ms. Weidel. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
We'll open this up to public comment right now, so you can take a brief break, and
Sure.
I might have some questions for you.
Sure.
So I will now open this up to public comment. Anyone here in the chamber, if you'd like to make a comment, please come forward.
So my name is Frank Hostler. I'm the general manager of the Concord County Water District. Good evening, everybody. It's good to see you guys again. I want to congratulate Sean for the wonderful job he's done in Ukiah. And I think what they're doing in Ukiah is a good thing. I just want to point out a couple differences between what they're doing in Ukiah and the city of Clear Lake's approach to consolidating water companies. The city of Ukiah has actually done outreach and has tried to collaborate with the other water districts in a more positive manner, instead of basically saying there will be only one district. So I think their approach was a little bit more open and there was more dialogue going and maybe less hurt feelings. And so I just want to point out some of the differences between the approach of Ukiah. So the city of Ukiah is currently a water supplier with a water district. The city of Ukiah has the expertise and the history of running a successful water district. The surrounding districts were in a water hookup moratorium. Some of those districts would only provide 55 gallons of water per person in the summertime. Sean was talking about how the JPA could get grant money for system improvements. One of the reasons why they can apply for grant money is they have districts with serious deficiencies. So just because they merged and form a JPA does not guarantee they receive grant money. They have not received any grant money for the consolidation. So far they have not received any money for consolidation. The SAFER program has reported that currently they have $11 billion in requested grant projects for systems with deficiencies, and they only have $2 billion budget. Our district, Kanaka County Water District, which is currently talking with the city of Clear Lake about forming a JPA, is not deficient, and we also meet all state and federal standards. The state budget is currently in the red and is cutting back on all the programs. Kanaka County Water District individually can apply for SAFER grant money without merging with the city of Clear Lake. So one of the things I want to point out is that Kanaka County Water District currently is working on $17 million worth of grant funded projects to improve the infrastructure for the city of Clear Lake and our community. That equals to about $3,500 per person, or $10,000 per connection. If the city was able to apply for grant funds to support their community, our community, the community we all live in, that would equal $60 million if the city would equal to what Kanaka County Water District has done for our community. Another thing I'd like to point out is that consolidation doesn't necessarily mean rates go down. There is a study that's been done that sometimes consolidations cause rates to go up. So it's not just the end all be all for the communities to make sure that consolidation happens. So just want to point out again that the little bit different between the two projects, and I think the city of Ukiah has been very successful in what they're trying to do. It's just not apples to oranges. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments from the chamber? Please.
Thank you for the opportunity, Rob Roscoe. I've been working with your city manager on some water issues in the city. And first of all, I think what you just heard from Sean White and what he's doing in the Ukiah Valley is just an exceptional example. In general, the larger the utility, the more capabilities in-house, more planning, more advanced, looking out in the future and what needs are going to be, much more resilience than individual small systems, and much more capability to respond to upsets and emergencies. The situation you're faced with here is not the same, as was pointed out. There are a lot of similarities, but there are certainly some differences. But right now in the city with 3 different water purveyors, there's a lot of duplication. You have 3 treatment plants. You've got 3 small staffs all doing the same things, basically, managing a small distribution system. So I think that there are, as I pointed out when I made a presentation a month ago, that there are certainly some advantages of looking at different ways of doing things. I think the agreements in Ukiah Valley are a great start in that direction. It was what worked. And I think there are some opportunities here. I think I made the point last time that it's a lot about not that your existing careers aren't doing a good job, but look at the opportunities that are being missed. If it was done differently, in my opinion, it could be a better situation. A larger utility has more capabilities, more resilience, less opportunities for upsets and failures. Nothing against the professionalism of the organizations serving water in the city right now. And I think I made that point before. I just think a lot of it is the opportunities that are presently missed with having 3 small entities all trying to operate a treatment plant, all independent distribution systems. There are a couple interties. Fire flow issues remain a problem. In my opinion, the system is getting older and older, and I don't see the replacement projects happening. I think Canocti has been very successful with some grant money. I think that was just pointed out, and I pointed that out in my presentation as well. The investor-owned utility serving a piece of the city will not be applying for grants. They have shareholder money, buy stock in them, giving money to the corporation, and that's how they spend their money. They earn a rate of return on that investment. Public agencies and the mutual have a no profit. We're if we end the books at the end of the season with more money than we started, that stays with the system. And that's not the same with an investor. Money is distributed to shareholders. So I just think I really am impressed with what's going on in Ukiah Valley. I think it's the right direction to go. And I think in the city of Clear Lake, you guys have some opportunities, and I think they are worth looking at.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else here in the chamber would like to make a comment, please come forward.
I just had one question. He didn't say how
I
much.
need you to introduce yourself.
I don't want to. I'm Stephanie Hummel. Hi, everybody. He didn't say how much they were paying you, Ukiah, and I was just curious about that. I'll table what else was.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you. Now I'm collecting these questions. Sir?
Yes. Now, there's about the water and stuff. I don't think stuff right now is the time for the city to get involved in that, all of that, because like I was saying, we have to step backwards on a couple of issues that we've already done, like animal control in the police department. And I think our effort should go towards what we have on our plates already, rather than taking on something new. I know the city is getting spread thin stuff with the airport development, the soccer, the fields out here and all. So we need to concentrate a bit on what we have on our plates, get more accomplished on that before we take on anything more. And I know I'm not in agreement with everybody, so, but thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments here in the chamber?
I'm having a real hard time hearing back there, so I don't know, can you hear me in the back?
Yep.
Good, okay, good. I just wanted to comment on the consolidation. I've been in on a lot of the meetings about the water. And the consolidation, as far as grant money, as far as the development that you foresee for Clear Lake, I think it sounds to me like it would be possibly a good idea to consolidate. Then you have the means for larger development. You have the means for getting areas that you see that are going to grow. You get them ready for, you get the water supply there. It seems like they'd have a lot more opportunity for a more organized move forward. And so that's my opinion. Thank you.
Any other comments here in the chamber? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, any comments on Zoom?
There are two comments on the Zoom. The first one is from Keith Earhart. If the city of Ukiah was not already in the water business, would the current JPA gone the same way? For instance, would the knowledge of the SAFER program have factored in? Would there be faith in the city's ability to run the water districts? If the city of Ukiah had not been in the water business already, would the consolidating water utilities be so willing to join the JPA with the city? And then we have another comment from Mark Ilya, who asks why customers' rate went up even though there were such grant funding.
Clerk, Ms. Roy, if you please come forward. I think we have a couple of questions for you. So let's go backwards here. The last question there I thought was a good one. If there's grant funding, why would the rates increase in fact?
Yeah, right. That is it's always a fun one during droughts when we tell people you can have less water and pay more. So first of all, to be clear, no one's rates have gone up yet because we haven't got to implementation of this program, as people have said before. But rates will go up likely in the future because even though the state is going to cover the cost of developing the infrastructure, we need to make a larger, interconnected, reliable entity. I think we're also going to be moving into the future with a rate base that actually allows us to take care of our infrastructure and not let it decay as it has in some areas in our region. So, like I said, not that anyone's doing a horrible job, no one is malintended, but some of the rates are just, I think, unsustainably low for having a reliable, robust facility or facilities in the future. So that they will just go to a sustainable level.
Clarification on that. So I think you're referring to deferred maintenance, and are you saying that it could be out there and you don't know it's out there until it breaks?
Yeah, there's a lot of systems in small areas that have a lot of what are sometimes called even age systems. That area was, incorporated by a special district. The system gets built, and then after it gets built, a large part of what happens is just repairing things that break. There's not a large O&M program that preemptively replaces things as they age out.
Can you give an example of what things would break potentially?
Mains, tanks get old and start leaking and failing. I mean, honestly, all of it. Water systems are like a boat, and metal, electricity, moving parts, and water are really not friends, and keeping things happy is expensive.
And pipelines too?
Yeah, that's an aid, yeah.
To touch on that a little bit, we had a comment saying this might not be the right time. Did you guys do any estimates on if you push this back 10 years, 20 years, what the impact would be?
No, we have not done that, but generally speaking, things don't get cheaper as time moves forward, and today's dollars will in all likelihood be cheaper than tomorrow's dollars. And again, the scale of what you'll need to do in 20 years will also be larger than what you need to do now. So, they say, right, the best days to plant a tree is 10 years ago, is today, and I think taking care of the water system is the same.
Mr. Hart's question had some speculation in there, but I'll try to summarize that.
Sure.
Mr. Costner had a good point here. So Ukiah's position as already having water service.
Yeah.
Did you feel like that strengthened the conversations that you had with?
I mean, sure, right? It's easy to fall in behind someone that's doing well already. I don't know how that would have gone, and I couldn't say. But even without our water utility, the city also operates an electric utility and provides electricity to the incorporated area. It's about 30%, 40% cheaper than PG&E. So we have a record of doing good with utility work. But I couldn't tell you. That's just, I don't know.
That's fair. And then your approach when you first started the JPA, was it contentious early on?
You know, I don't think it was. And I want to tell you, 10 years ago, it would have been really contentious. But for whatever reason, like I said, the drought was fresh in everyone's minds. And our town is no different than any other town. And in the past, there were a couple of big personalities that really wanted to keep, you know, their sandbox. And that's what really led to a lot of litigation and protests and other things that have sort of stymied a lot of progress that you've had in the past. And, you know, most of those people have just aged out. They're not on the boards anymore. And I think those two things combined really set the stage for the SAFER program to find a receptive audience. And no, we have not received any money yet. And yes, the state is in budgetary despair. But I'll also say that in my career, I've had great success actually during these windows. Because a lot of times people are not doing things because the state is broke. But it's really been my experience that it's actually the best time to be planning, because in a few years, the state budget will be back. It's a cyclical thing. And then they'll be looking for shovel-ready things, and no one had any because they've been sitting around waiting for the state to have money again. If you have something ready to go the day things are in the black again, it's a great time.
What are the rates in Ukiah right now for one?
You know, I think for an average house, it's about $70.
Is that just for connection fee, or is that with water usage as well?
That's fixed and usage, yeah. Yeah, your water bill's about $70.
Another area, go ahead.
So, and Mr. Ely had a question about the rates that increased. I thought I heard you say that they were paying about $20 a month.
Yeah, that's
a very
just
substandard system.
That's just it. Well, yeah, theirs are
But they haven't connected yet. They haven't seen a rate increase.
in a long time.
Right, you're just estimating that it may $40 a month.
Yeah,
When you're
theirs
tight.
will in all likelihood go up significantly. And that has been a huge detractor for them wanting to join,
Sure.
and I get that. But I think some of their board members realize like what they're doing now is probably not the best long look, and it's probably time to sort of modernize how they're.
So where that deferred maintenance we were talking about earlier might come in?
Yeah, and you know, their system is actually, not every system that we've been talking to, it has some major deficiencies. When it comes to just providing reasonable service and things, Willow, who is actually quite cheap, does honestly a pretty good job. They've been able to do that by operating one of the other places under contract and creating some additional revenue that way. But some of the other ones, like Redwood, it is honestly bananas how bad it is. And I was honestly a little bit taken aback that other things from the state hadn't happened before this.
One other, I think, is a fair concern with the consolidation. Are you expecting any layoffs, any jobs being slashed?
No, you know, because at the end of the day, we're going to still have to serve the same amount of people. And one of the things that has been nice about IRWA being in place already is they've already done a lot of managerial consolidation. So there was a time when Millview had a general manager, Redwood had a general manager, Willow had a general manager, and so on. And right now, there's only one general manager, who is Sheriff Walker at Willow, and he's doing a really nice job. So what will happen, and we said this from the beginning, we will absorb everyone, and as people find their new place, we'll actually in all likelihood have to hire more things to the level of service that I'd like to see. And even for me, having someone like Jared join our team is awesome for successional planning, because I want to take this fantastic haircut and go hang out with my grandson in the near future. And it'll be nice to know that there's someone in-house ready to take the reins when I retire. So no, we're not shedding any bodies.
Thank you, Mr. White. Any other questions from council?
Mr. Mayor, For Mr. Whiteley, there's actually an additional question on Zoom for Mr. Elliott. Can the city of Ukiah get grant funding to make improvements to the failing water systems instead of raising the rates, essentially using other people's money to make improvements?
And that's really the whole point of this program, is to use other people's money to make system improvements. The increase in rates, they said, will not really be to build things and to deal with what the state's going to cover. It will be to generate a sufficient rate base to take care of things so increases in O&M, all that sort of thing.
Well, Mr. White, thank you so much. Your experiences and your input is incredibly helpful, and I appreciate your partnership and working with our city manager so that we can understand the challenges we might face.
Yep, anytime if you want to come over and go on a tour, see what we're doing, you're always welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for coming over again.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, there's, we'll probably need to get into a little bit more detail at some point here about the SAFER program and how it works, but I did want to share a little bit of information that to put it in accurate context. So there's just sort of a few different ways the State Water Board looks at systems, and it's been mentioned that their priority is systems that are considered failing and then also in disadvantaged communities. Okay, so that is true, and that's what they prioritize. But the reason that talking about consolidation is important is the state board and the SAFER program put those projects in a different category, even if they're not considered failing. And so that is one of the opportunities here. And, there's been some talk about the funding thing, and we could dig into that. There's certainly, the state budget is very tight. There's a number of grant programs even that have been awarded that have been pulled back. A lot of programs that they had intended to award funding for that have been pulled back. There hasn't been so much of that in this program yet, but there's not the amount of money there that there was a few years ago. But there's a couple of bonds that are on the ballot this year, which does include additional investment in water infrastructure. And the state is also quietly considered an additional water bond to be put on a future ballot because of the importance of this. I mean, there's still, I think, over 7,500 water systems in California. There's a lot of them that are considered failing, potentially failing, and really is going to prioritize funding to just make this happen.
All right, moving on to item 13, a discussion and consideration of resolution SA 24-2, amending resolution 2021-4, approving a name change related to the purchase and sale agreement for the property at 2890 Old Highway 53, Clear Lake, to Danco Homes LLC. Mr. Floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. So this is a relatively simple item, but you're aware the long process we got to this point, but Danco Communities, which built just 80 units of housing in the senior center, is also working on some other projects in the city, one being the purchase of former redevelopment agency property, 29 acres, kind of on the north part of town, Rivers Valley region, for development of single-family housing, 22 lots. So the property's been in escrow for a while, and that escrow closing was contingent upon getting their entitlements complete, which happened, and then sort of the last minute in closing, Danco decided they wanted to create a new LLC to take ownership of the land. So underwriting the title company went back. We had a resolution that specified Danco Homes as taking ownership. Now there's a new LLC called Danco Homes 2 taking ownership. And so we need to have the city council now setting as the board of directors of the successor agency to the redevelopment agency adopt the resolution that's in front of you, formalizing that so we can close escrow and get Danco into its new homes.
Thank you, Mr. Flora. Any questions from council? Any questions? Open up to the public. Any questions here or comments here in the chamber? Forget. Madam Clerk, any comments on Zoom?
There are no comments on the Zoom, Mr. Mayor.
Bring back to council.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution SA 2024-02, amending resolution 2021-04, approving a name change related to the purchase and sale agreement for the property at 2890 Old Highway 53, Clear Lake, to Danco Homes LLC.
I'll second. I have a motion from Councilmember Kramer, a second from Mayor Flaherty. All those in favor, please vote in your form.
Motion passes with unanimous vote of the council.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, City Manager report.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few things. I wanted to give, these are kind of some random notes here, but I got an update this week from our sales tax consultant on what's been happening out there, which there are a couple of bright spots and certainly some negatives, as I'm sure you're aware. So kind of looking statewide, we're already seeing the new minimum wage increase for quick service restaurants is already pushing up the unemployment rate as employers lay off staff and reduce hours. Interestingly, there's so much push for housing and whatnot in the state. Building permits actually are down 10%. Right now, statewide, housing values still pushing up about 10% up over last year. More locally, just a few things. Reduction in used car sales is hurting us. We don't get sales tax for vehicle sales in our normal 1%. We've talked about this before, I'm sure you'll recall, but Measure B and Measure B, if you buy a vehicle, no matter where it is, those special taxes are added to the transaction for where you register the vehicle. So the reduction in those sales are earnest. I mean, the general thing is consumers out there right now are feeling the pain and are looking for value. And so retailers like dollar stores are struggling because people want, and luxury brands are struggling. People are doing the Walmart and Target thing and trying to get as much value as they can for their buck. Here locally, we have seen a lot of ups and downs here, but the dispensaries, cannabis sales are down quite significantly, over 20%, I think, for both our dispensaries over last year. Not sure what's driving that. Maybe just less money in people's pockets. But and then gas prices are down quite a bit, which is good for us as a consumer, but not as good for city revenues. We do receive pretty significant chunk of revenue from fuel sales. And so for the, there's still a true up amount that will happen. So we haven't seen the final sales tax from the end of last fiscal year yet. That will be happening here in the next couple of weeks. But, when we adopted the budget, we talked about we're a little below budget on our Bradley Burns 1%. That's looking to come in. There's a few one-time corrections that always happen that are kind of hurting us just because we don't have as much of the growth as we normally do. Those corrections usually kind of wash out. Now we're feeling the pain of fuel a little bit. So still not overly negative. Seeing a little decline. They are expecting or projecting now a slight increase into next year, which in our budget we had a little bit of a decrease. But the good news is Measure B and Measure B are actually doing slightly better than budget at this point. Couple of project updates. So road projects are beginning. We have 2 of them going now. The Tree Streets is starting on Monday.
Tree Streets and starting.
Okay, they're both starting on Monday. So it'll be good to get that going. We did have a workshop here yesterday for the next round of CDBG, Community Development Block Grant funding. to get input from the community on what applications to apply for, and we'll talk about this when we bring the resolutions back to the council, but just a little prelude there. So this round of funding was supposed to happen last year, and they have changed the CDBG rules and have delayed the implementation. So there's some positives to the way they've changed the rules and some negatives. One positive is, we've applied for funding through CDBG for renovating Highlands Park previously. We like to, use this funding for infrastructure projects. Those projects historically haven't scored well. We expect that to be different now with the new rules, so that is good. However, one of the requirements basically to apply or to apply to be competitive is you have your NEPA, your federal you've done at the time of application. So at this moment, we don't have large infrastructure projects that's the case. We would, I would really like to apply for the Burns Valley Sports Complex, but because of some of the ongoing disagreements with the Koine Nation, that NEPA hasn't been able to be completed, and still working through that. So we're looking at some of the smaller buckets of funding, unfortunately, because, we want to bring as much to the city as we can. So this is more planning and technical assistance. So we're focusing at this point, intending to apply for an application to do planning and design support related to the airport infrastructure that we're going to need. We're probably going to need federal funding for that. So go ahead and get the NEPA going. We've already started on the CEQA part of that. So that's one part. And the other thing that we didn't realize was possible until yesterday that I think might be a real benefit to the community. We've been talking about water rates, some districts' rates here in the city are much higher than others. And we're actually have the possibility to create a program that would allow us to support customers that are struggling to pay those water rates and actually help them pay their water rates for 3 months in a year. And so we're looking to apply for a few $100,000 funding to start a program around that. So we'll bring that back. The note will be coming out here in a few weeks. And then we'll be moving forward on the application, bring a resolution back to council. The only other thing that I wanted to add, we had a new police officer that started this week. So the police department officers wise is fully staffed, which is good. We still have one dispatcher vacancy, which we're working to fill, and one vacancy for code enforcement officer. That's
Last time we had a fully staffed police department.
I have no idea, and I never expected to see it happen.
Have we ever?
Once.
Once?
Wonderful, thank you, City Manager. Councilman Burke?
Yes, I don't have much. I did attend an APC LPA meeting on Wednesday. Talked about the Kanata corridor projects. That's the Highway 29. First part's done pretty much now. It's 2A. They're out for design. They're out have the money for right-of-way purchases, $42 million, I think, for Section 2D of it. They don't have construction funds yet, so it's going to be several years out. We talked a little bit more about the traffic safety plans for Highway 53, the lighting project that City Manager Flora and I met with the Traffic Safety Committee on a couple weeks ago. They're on board with their ideas. They're trying to they're restructuring their previous ideas, which would include an underpass to focus on our pedestrian overpass between 18th and Dan Road. So they're working on that. And those were kind of the highlights of that meeting. The other thing I have is just a reminder to everybody that there is a candidate forum next Wednesday for District 1, the 2 remaining District 1 candidates for supervisor. That does include a small part of the city of Clear Lake, Highlands Harbor, Lakeshore Drive, or Lakeshore Village rather, in the area from Old Iowa District 3 along the lake up a certain distance. It does impact Clear Lake. The 2 candidates, John Hess is a now planning commissioner, and Helen Owens is a ranch owner has done a lot of community work in the past. I think they both have their good points, and I think it would be important if you could to attend that. It's going to be videoed. Our own supervisor Savache is going to be the videographer for it. It will be moderated by Elizabeth Larson with Laco News, and it's going to be sponsored by the Lower Lake Community Action Group. It will physically be held at the Action Group's clubhouse in Lower Lake in the Russell Rustitchy Park. That'll start at 6 p.m. next Wednesday. Then September 16th, we're going to there'll be a candidate forum put on here in our City Hall chambers. That will be sponsored and moderated by Elizabeth Larson and Laco News. Again, it'll start around 6 o'clock. That's a Monday, September 16th. We have 8 candidates, I believe, for including the 3 incumbents for city council. So that should be an important thing for you to attend and see what each presents to you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Burdock.
I have no meeting reports to announce. Would like to announce the Clear Lake Chamber of Commerce is having their Luau Creek on October 5th is the date for that event. And if you didn't hear, August 31st is the FFA livestock auction. You don't want to miss that. Is that October? August. Not Halloween, but Labor Day.
And Mr. Mike Salter has talked to you. If you want him to do the buying for you, just give him your money.
Thank you,
and I can
Mr.
put you in contact.
Councilmember Sutton.
I have nothing to report except that Canine dinner is also October 5th. And people can come to that too.
All right, well, thank you all. Please enjoy this Labor Day weekend coming up. Enjoy the county fair. Go bid on pork and spoon and Sir McGillicuddy. I forgot all the names, but
And Woody and Buzz.
Woody and Buzz. Thank you all for joining us today, and have a great week.
We're during the closed session. Cheers.
We're adjourned. In closed session. Thank you.
Other than that, here,
Thanks, guys. Thanks for doing that.